Okay, so last week we practiced going down into the earth, contacting the energy in that space that's beyond that me space, right? And then we brought it up from the earth through the perineum into the space of the central channel, essentially, putting it briefly. There are a lot of steps to that process. And if I remember correctly, we explored that space all the way up to the base of the skull in a general sense, just finding our way into that sense of openness in the body and seeing how that the naturally occurring energy beneath us, it just comes up and fills that space. We don't have to push it up or pull it up. There's really no control in this process. The point of many, if not all of these practices is to give up control, actually, and see how the world, how the universe, how life can happen on its own, and all we have to do is get out of the way. Last week there was a student, I think it was on Thursday night, and he made this really great observation. We were working with the space in the body, but not doing the practice that I just mentioned. And I made the note that, in a sense, when we're sitting, we can allow our physical body to really soften and relax when we're really in tune with that sense of openness at our core. Because when we're in tune with it, when we give ourselves over to it, when we surrender to that openness, it has its own type of strength. And it's not a physical strength, but it's a sense of presence or being. And sometimes it does feel quite solid, like this very strong energetic support inside of us, around which we can soften over and over again. And this young man noted, he said, in the first few minutes, I feel, wow, I can really relax and feel this openness inside of me, and I feel the energy. But then after a while, I start to kind of curl up and collapse a little bit, and then I try and get back into it, but it gets harder and harder as time goes on. What am I doing wrong? And it was a beautiful, important question that he asked, because he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was doing the practice. And the practices are meant to reveal deeper and deeper levels of holding on, deeper and deeper levels of tension, deeper and deeper levels of resistance. And these practices, they're not meant to be perfected per se, that suddenly we feel open and we stay that way for the next 45 minutes. No. The way they work is that we touch into that openness, we touch into letting go, and our small sense of self reacts eventually. It tries to go along with it, and we feel this openness, but then it starts closing in. Like, okay, I've had enough. I'm starting to lose my sense of self here, my sense of ego, in a way. And so that's been revealed in that moment, another layer of holding on. And then within that holding on, we relax and soften that, and soften our resistance to it. And then we're open again. Not in the sense of pushing away the closing down, but opening to it and opening through it. And in that way, we see it, there's a relationship with it. We see that its essence is not really permanent, that it does soften, and then we feel open again until perhaps a few minutes or a half hour later when we feel miserable again. And then we work with that. So that's how these practices really are. In a way, they're an exchange. We're exchanging our ultimate nature for our relative nature. We're going back and forth. Sometimes we feel enlightened, and sometimes we feel completely neurotic. We feel open, and our heart is brimming with love, and then we feel resentment and anger, and memories are coming up, and we feel terrible. We feel connected to our body, then we feel totally disconnected. And we go back and forth, and that is the path. And we just keep doing that over and over and over again in more and more subtle ways and subtle levels. The technique might stay the same that you work with, but your approach to it gets more refined as time goes on. And sometimes we could be practicing a certain way for a year or two and it seems like nothing is happening. But indeed, we're putting in the hard work during that time, sitting through the boredom, sitting through the lack of openness, sitting through, and then when we don't expect it, something happens. Something that's beyond our vision. And we can't see it coming because it's beyond our vision. We can't plan it. We cannot push it or force it. It comes when it's ready. It's not up to the small me for when that happens. So I just want to let you know that. So if you have any difficult expectations about how your practice should be going, you can just let them go and relax and enjoy the process. The other reason I'm mentioning how these practices work on us is that tonight we're going to do the practice we did last week, but we're going to do it in a slightly more specific way. We're going to bring that energy up through our body and pay a lot of attention to when it comes up just underneath our heart, and then eventually we let that energy come up into the heart space itself and explore that process. Last time we sort of went behind the heart and on up. And I'm saying this because one thing that's happened for me off and on through the years is sometimes I'm practicing and my heart feels like a lump of coal. Or suddenly there's a memory starting to arise from something in my past and it hurts. Or maybe it hurts and I don't know why. Just there's a physical ache there, or it feels like concrete, or maybe I can't even find it, or it feels dead inside. And this is important. When we start to have these feelings in our heart, it's actually a good sign. We're making contact with an aspect of ourself that the ego tends to just close over. Don't look there. So when we bring this energy up to touch the heart, in a way we're reconnecting with it. We're igniting the power of the heart itself. We're joining with the energy of the earth and seeing that our heart and life are not really separate, but sometimes they feel separate, and that's why we can feel such disconnect or such loneliness or desolation. It's almost like there's a block of ice around it, and the energy comes up. And if we do this slowly, gradually, without any expectation, gently, and with a sense of loving kindness, we start to melt that block of ice. And away we come back to life. It's not that our deeper self has ever been dead or asleep. It's always awake underneath, but there are these layers that we've just done nothing with, and now we're going to start working with them, and we're not going to do anything actually. We're going to let the energy do the work. All we have to do is step out of the way and open up the exchange of energy and the sense of space and see what happens. Sometimes it might just make your heart hurt more, but it's not really hurting more, we're just feeling it more. So we're removing that veil of ignorance, that veil that would rather just not feel anything at all. So we go from there to becoming more sensitive, which our ego doesn't want. But we know that, in our heart of hearts, we do want to feel the pain. We do want to feel all that we normally reject and push away. We want to see what's going on inside. So this is an energetic practice, but it's really a kindness, compassion practice for ourselves. And again, sometimes nothing seems to be happening, and that's okay too. We're not meant to use this to blow away blockages or transform, and there's a lot of that kind of talk out there, but I think that's a subtle form of aggression to just, we're going to fix ourselves, right? That's not what's happening here. That's not the attitude we take. It's more of a therapeutic presence kind of application that we take here. So we're going to start the way we did last time, and I'll guide us through the whole way again, but you know this practice now. If you need to move at your own speed, because you know the instructions, go ahead, don't listen to me, and we'll just see how it goes. So take your time to lay down. I'm going to dim the lights a little bit, and we'll go from there. So we'll just start with the preliminary steps of noticing any obvious holding in the lower back, the back of the neck, the thighs, softening the jaw and the pelvic floor. Having done this quite a bit now over the last few weeks, we see that we can soften immediately. And it's not a sense of rushing, it's just that the body yearns to relax. And when you know all the steps, in just a few moments, within a few moments, you can just let it all go. And start to feel heavy on the earth. And then take a moment to note your state of mind. Are there lots of thoughts moving through, or are you slowing down a little bit? What kind of mood are you holding in your body and in your heart? And just for a little bit, you can touch into your heart itself and see, how do you feel? How is your heart tonight? Sometimes when we direct our attention to the heart, there's a sense of resistance, or even you might feel annoyed or irritated. And that's important to note. It's a kind of resistance or a defensiveness. And it doesn't mean ignore it, but it means, you can regard it as an invitation, actually. And now let's reestablish a sense of openness in the body by doing a 3-fold breath practice briefly. After a while, you don't even need to use the hands if you don't want to, but if you'd like to, you can put your hands on your tummy to start. And on the inhale, we feel our stomach expanding, rising up and stretching out sideways. Exhaling, feeling the stomach drop slightly, the hands just resting lightly, moving with the stomach. And at this point, we can work with the outer region and the inner region at the same time now, assuming that you've become familiar with this practice. So we can breathe in, imagining the breath coming into the core of the lower belly. So in that space, that's halfway between the lower back and your belly button, but a little bit lower than the belly button, maybe underneath your hands where they're resting. So we let our awareness follow the breath into that openness in the lower belly. And at the same time, on the inhale, you might feel some tension in the surrounding area. And when you exhale, just soften Soften that. You can relax with the practice, but we're not zoning out. We're keeping our awareness crisp and awake. So we're really connecting now with a sense of openness, so that it's a little bit groundless. The mind has a little bit of a difficult time dwelling in this space of the lower belly. And we just breathe into it and keep resting within it anytime we depart. And now let's explore backwards a little bit. So let your attention drop even further down through the lower back to that boundary space, which we know now is not exactly solid. See if you can allow that sense of openness that's in the core of the belly drop down a little bit, or just discover the openness as it extends through the lower back. And as we look in the back of the body there, we see that it's not just empty, that there is experience. At the very least, your awareness is there. So if there are any sensations of energy, of physicality, of emotion, even pain, anything, we don't have to pretend it's not there. We can include it within the space of openness. Okay, and then we'll move to the heart center next. So if you'd like to, you can bring your fingertips to rest on the sternum. And we alter our physical breathing so that the rib cage now is expanding when we breathe in, dropping a little bit when we exhale. And over a couple of minutes, you can gradually come more and more into the heart space itself and the surrounding area. So the boundaries around the heart and then going into the heart. Just do it at your own speed. But you can imagine that on the inhale, you're breathing all around into this area. And your mind comes to rest within the middle of it more and more. And be curious, what is the experience within this space? And now letting your awareness drop back. So exploring the boundary at the heart center region in the back of the body. And now we come up to the throat. So on the inhale, we can feel any tension between the collarbones all the way up to under the chin, in the front of the throat, and then back, the back of the neck. Again, softening the jaw and the shoulders. Gradually looking for that specific area of the energetic throat center, that spot that calls for your attention. And then moving our awareness backward again to the space behind the neck, opening down into the earth a little bit. And then let's our awareness spread through the torso, connecting the three areas, and even spreading out to the limbs and the head. So we're kind of opening up to the space behind the body that's just going into the earth a little bit. Just exploring that boundary. See if you can touch in particularly to that sense of energy, that fuzzy or tingly or movement kind of experience that's in the back of the body that you share with the earth. And then when you've touched into that sensation, and you have to be very subtle when you look for it. If you look too hard, you almost block the experience. So you kind of look in a very gentle way, and when you feel it, then start the breath exchange that we've done before. So when you breathe in, let this energy move up into your body a little bit, and then when you exhale, allow that energy to fall beneath you just a little bit to be received by the earth. So we're not going very deep, just a few inches behind the body as you breathe out. And then breathing in, feel that energy coming up into you throughout your whole body, in the back of the body. Exhaling, giving it all up, letting it fall behind you, beneath you. And this is something you can enjoy. It can feel so pleasant And now we're going to do the earth descent, and let's start by doing it in your own way. So I'm not going to do the countdown or anything like that. But what you can do is on your next exhale, just let yourself continue falling beneath the body. And it can be very slow in the beginning. And just you decide the speed you want to fall. It could be a slow sinking sensation or just shooting down like a meteor or a comet. But just spend a few minutes exploring the space beneath you in the earth. See how far you can go. And as you move down, try and let go of that sense of boundary around your awareness. So in a sense, you can just let your awareness expand downward and also out to the sides in that space. Let it spread. And see how that is. Okay, and then let's come up. Come back into your body slowly. If you've touched into any of that energy within that open space, you can let it come up with you. And if you didn't, that's okay. So now we're going to do the earth descent in the more abrupt fashion. So what we did just now was preparing the ground for that. And again, I'll just explain the steps. So I'll count to 3 and then say go. And what you want to do when I start counting is increase your sense of self, the sense of you. You can build up the tension or holding in your body. You can even tighten your muscles a little bit if you want. And just really gather yourself together, a little bit tightly. And then when I say go, just breathe out and completely let go of yourself. And then let the sense of you, your consciousness, just fall. And as it falls down through the space below, you can push it a little bit so that it's falling faster and faster. And see if you can get to the point where your mind gets a little bit shaky, where you start to feel your boundaries opening up a little bit or cracking. And then as that process happens, you'll notice a sense of freshness, of fresh energy coming in from outside of you. In a sense, we're really just letting go very quickly. And as we let go, we're contacting reality. We're contacting how life is outside of our mental bubble. And so it's empty, but at the same time there's this experience of energy there. And it might feel warm. For some people it feels cool. It might feel like anything really. But it's something that you didn't plan. And then we'll just linger there for a little bit before coming back up into the body. So we'll begin. So 1, 2, 3, go. If your body tightens up, see if you can soften every part of it and then keep falling. And then let's slowly bring our awareness up through the depths into the body. And notice as you come up, there might be a sensation of force, of support, of that energy coming up behind you as if it's holding you up. And let it come up into the body. You might notice how it feels a little bit different than that initial energetic boundary that we were working with. So your body might feel a little bit more awake now. There's a sense of it being vivid. That it's not relaxed the way it might normally be. It's more of a sense of being refreshed. So let's take a moment now to move into the sitting posture. And we'll practice a little bit with the sitting posture before we take a break. So we're just setting the stage here. We're creating this opportunity for the energy to come further into our body in a certain way. So to establish the posture, let's make sure that our belly is nice and soft. So when we're breathing, it's really expanding down below. We're not just breathing into the upper chest, but this is soft and open. And with that, we can feel the pelvic floor softening. See if you can connect with the open space in the lower belly. All you have to do is put your mind right there and breathe into it. And then while you're aware of the openness in the lower belly, touch into your perineum also. So you're breathing into it. And you can imagine breathing into it from below your body, from the outside. You might start feeling how it is a physical place in the beginning, but the more you breathe into it and through it, you start to notice the spacious quality of the perineum. And you discover a sense of openness there that is shared with the openness in the lower belly. So we'll do that for a few moments. And then let your mind extend beneath the body even more. So see if you can dip down into the space of the earth, be present there, explore that sense of openness and see how it moves through the perineum into the lower belly. So we could say that this channel that we worked with in our body, it actually begins underneath the body. So let your mind explore that space. And kind of establishing the openness there. And then what we can do is, on the in-breath, you can have a sense of invitation or openness toward the energy that's in that space beneath us in the earth. And on the inhale, we just allow, if the energy wants to rise up through the ground and through the perineum, and gradually it comes up a little bit more into the lower belly, breath by breath. You don't even have to imagine pulling it up or anything like that, but just kind of being open to it, being open to whatever arises within the spacious quality. And breathing in, you just feel, what is that? Is there any movement? Is there any sensation? Is it just a sense of knowing or a sense of presence that's coming up through that openness? So we're talking about something very subtle. And let me just check in with you. Do we need to take a break, or do you want to go all the way to 9 without a break? Everyone's doing okay? Okay. Okay, let's just keep sitting while a couple of us take a break, and then we'll continue when they come back. Okay, so to reestablish the posture, make sure that your tummy is soft and your pelvic floor is soft and your jaw is released. And if you find yourself being in thinking mode a lot, here's 2 tips. Let your awareness go even further down into the space of the earth, further away from your head. In the part of you that's aware of being in the body, let that sense of you move further back in the body. So in the lower belly region, we're moving back up against the spine, and even then you might even step behind it until you feel the sense of openness again, where your thinking mind really can't function the same way. You'll feel a shift. When you're up front, you can be thinking during this whole process. But if you let your awareness fall way back in the body, just explore backward, you'll come to a point where, oh, there's a gap in your mind. There's a sense of openness. You're not as easily drawn out into thinking mode. So let's see if we can find our place in the body this way. And then I'll just give the instruction of how to bring this up into the heart space. And it's just a little bit different than what we did last time. So when you're established in the lower belly with that sense of openness and the sense of receiving the energy from beneath, and all you have to do is be conscious of the openness, the energy will do its own thing within that space. Breath by breath, look for the openness above, slightly above, and then keep moving upward, just in front of the spine, or wherever that sense of openness, that channel of openness is. So all you have to do is explore upward gradually, looking for that open space, and as you move up, the energy starts to come up with you. The energy will follow the openness. And that's the thing, if you're thinking, then you are not in touch with the openness, and the energy is not going to go into your thinking mind. You're just not going to feel the energy at all. You'll be daydreaming instead. So just tune into the openness in the body, gradually moving upward, letting the energy follow it. See if after a few minutes you can come to the space just underneath the level of the heart. And you might notice a response from the heart as you come close to it. There's a response. It can tell that you're tuning into the openness around it and close to it, and it's waiting for you in a way. Spend some time there at the outer edges of the heart, like you're standing at the gate. And then you'll know when it's the appropriate time to let that sense of openness move even further, and let your attention move into the heart space itself, inviting the energy from the earth to come all the way up and touch your heart and fill your heart. And see how the heart responds. See how you feel. See what it brings out in that experience. In a sense, we're bathing the heart center with the energy of the space in the earth beneath us. All we have to do is open up the possibility, and the energy takes care of the rest. So take your time to explore that, and we'll just do that for about 15 minutes here. Just notice how wonderful it is to be held unconditionally. That this energy comes up, this space comes up, and it has no requirements. It just needs acknowledgement, and it holds our heart in its own space. And the only step left is for us to let go of any of our expectations, any of our requirements. And this is how we can be with ourselves unconditionally, and it's wonderful. It's one of those things we all long for in other people. But when we practice this way, we don't need for anything else. And it's not to reject others, but we see that we can hold this loving presence for ourselves, and that the earth energy, the earth's awareness, reality's awareness, holds us this way all the time, but all we have to do is tune into it. So, again, this is a little bit complex because we're putting together several practices, and honestly, this is years worth of practice that I'm presenting over 10 weeks. it took me years to learn each one over time, and I'm just giving you a taste of what happens like that. But if you continue this, you do each one for a long time until you're well established in it, and then move on. So I'm just saying that so you don't feel like nothing happened tonight. This felt like dead. And I apologize for my coughing. As soon as I lay down, a piece of insulation came down from the ceiling and went right into my lung. So I've been dealing with that all night. And it made it hard to concentrate, so I apologize. But does anyone have any questions or comments about this practice? Did anyone have a little bit of experience of touching in and the heart responding to that openness and the energy? Or not quite? No? A little bit? Okay.
I'd like to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You said keep the thoughts out, focus back and
Mm-hmm.
down.
Mm-hmm.
But I notice when I try to come up to the heart space, the thoughts would intensify.
Uh-huh.
So then I would have to go back down.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt more, I don't know, open down there.
Mm-hmm.
As I went up, the thoughts, my mind would start wandering off. And
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't know if I was supposed. It just became more of a thought process.
Mm-hmm.
Am I doing it right? Am I not?
Right. Yeah. And that's normal that we start to think about the practice while we're doing it.
Yeah.
So one couple of things there is that you can let your attention, and this takes practice of course, let your attention stay beneath you in the space of the earth while part of it is moving up. So you're kind of connected to both,
Okay.
being in your body and underneath. And the other thing is when we're using that space toward the back of the body, when we're coming back here, you don't have to worry about pushing away thoughts or shutting down thoughts. Thoughts are still going to happen, but what's not happening is that you're not getting pulled out of that space. So don't try and eliminate them or anything. It's more like, don't worry about them. You just worry about the space, and the thoughts will take care of themselves. You'll just naturally unhook from them. So in a sense, they have their own energy, that they have the right to exist. We just don't have to believe in them so much, or don't get hooked by them. So let go of the rejecting thoughts or anything like that. Just tune into the space and let everything else do whatever it needs to do.
Okay.
And then suddenly it's a lot easier that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can just be more open. It's better it's easier to be just open with all of this when we let go of all these other requirements, like how we manipulate our thinking mind and things like that. And I know I do mention not getting hooked and stuff, but the way to do that is not to actually fight them. It's more to just relate to the openness that's underneath them. So,
Okay.
yeah. And you had one too?
I was just going to say, I felt that whole expansion of the space happening actually a lot more spontaneously than I expected it to. The idea of focusing sort of on the upper part of my body, without the sound ever coming off. And so that expanded all the way, and when it got right close to my heart, there was this very tight, casual experience.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, the space, and then it bumped along there for a while, and then the space expanded, and then it was really uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
just physically uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But it was there. It was interesting. It was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's two good points there. One is, especially when working with the heart, you don't want to push or force yourself to be there too long, especially at the beginning. So be gentle as you explore. I think you already know that one. And that you said it was kind of a spontaneous opening up, a spontaneous experience.
And the space just expanded on its own.
Mm-hmm. And that is the ticket for that practice and all the practices, that we just really have to give up control and make room for life to happen on its own. That's what's happening here. I mention that because we've all heard about similar practices or similar notions on the internet or TV programs, and you see diagrams with different colored chakras, and then this thing about the energy coming up and all these names for it. And I think as in this culture or this society, we think, well, I'm going to make that happen, and it has to look this way, and I'm going to see these colors in these places. And for example, in Tibetan, in Vajrayana Buddhism, Tantric Buddhism, if you look at Mother Tantra practices and you see how they're describing the chakras, they'll have a certain set of colors, like this might be yellow. But if you look at the Father Tantra practices, they're a completely different set of colors. And if you look at Hindu Tantra, different colors. If you look at Western metaphysical traditions, they generally follow the order of the colors of the rainbow. So who's right? The point is, all of these descriptions are meant as guideposts to bring our attention there, and then we see what we actually experience. And it's probably not going to match up with these descriptions. They're guideposts, not how things really are, in my opinion. That's why I don't even talk about colors or any of that stuff here. I give very light instruction, and then you see what actually happens when you don't even get introduced to these ideas. They get in the way, So, okay. Well, good night, everyone, and have a great Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next week. Okay.